Let's get to my good friend Amy Hunter. Haven't talked to her in a while, from the National Rifle Association. Amy, good to have you with us.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, Amy, what is going on in Hawaii?
Oh, my goodness. Okay. So Hawaii has passed a bill. The state legislature has passed a bill, and it's awaiting the governor's signature, that is going to put every single law-abiding gun owner, so every gun owner that registers their firearms in Hawaii, which they're required to do, will now, if this law is signed, be put into a federal FBI-run database that will monitor and track them wherever they go in the country, so that anything that happens to them when they're not in Hawaii or elsewhere, whether it be a speeding ticket, whether it be jaywalking, whether it be just, anything could be terrible but unrelated whatsoever, will be reported back to the local police department. So the local police departments can keep tabs on what's going on with every single one of their gun owners.
So let me get this straight. If I live in Hawaii and this law passes through their General Assembly, right?
It's passed through the whole legislature, and it's under AG review and waiting for the governor.
Okay. So the governor signs the bill. And that means if I'm in Hawaii and I have legally gone through a background check and I own a firearm legally under the Second Amendment, that my name would go into a federal registry, a federal database saying that I own a firearm, right?
Yeah.
And so is this not the number one thing that gun owners have been claiming for some time, that the ultimate goal of the Obama administration ultimately is to get every gun owner on a registry, so that if the time came where there was a law to confiscate firearms, they would know every single person that had one, right?
Well, and, the irony there is they would know every single law-abiding person who had one. They would know every single person who came in and registered and followed all the laws and went through the background checks. But, the criminal element would still be left out. And that's the largest issue with this bill, is it just begs the question. You can't read this bill and not think, well, what are they doing about crime? I'd really like to know what they're doing to catch people doing things with firearms that are illegal, the ones that aren't actually going through Hawaii's very, very strict processes and registering their firearms. So it is exactly like you said. It's what we've been shocked. In fact, when we first saw it come out, the NRA was like, sort of, what is this? And we've been researching it, and our lawyers are on it, and that's why we're pushing the word out nationally on this one, because we want everyone to know what's going on over there.
So, Amy, some of the most egregious factors of this bill are that, as I understand it, gun owners will have to pay for the entire database themselves. So they're paying for their own surveillance.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the database already exists, right? So the database is already an FBI database that's run, and it's for people who are in positions of trust. So examples I've heard are foster parents who, want to become foster parents. They can be put onto this. Corporate board members, if they have a morality clause, perhaps, a corporation can put them on this database. School bus drivers. But the key there is that these people who want to occupy those positions of trust agree to go into this database, and whatever entity puts them in this database pays for it, right? And they've agreed to this if they want to, if they want that. In this scenario, to exercise a fundamental constitutional right, the firearm owner, the law-abiding citizen, has to pay themselves in order to be on this system. So it does. It falls to the gun owner, as we've seen time and time again.
So what about any individual that wanted to travel to Hawaii to hunt?
Well, I mean, that's the other funny is the wrong word. It's not only Hawaiians. I mean, a lot of people travel to Hawaii to hunt. There's military bases on Hawaii. This will affect anyone who goes to Hawaii with a firearm, because this affects anyone who registers their firearm with the state, which you are required to do when you arrive. And there's no mechanism in the bill for getting off this database. So it's not like you're on the database for the duration of your hunting trip or of your your stay. Once you leave the islands, you're on it indefinitely. So they're tracking you wherever you go. They want to know. And it's as though they think they're treating people who exercise their Second Amendment right as inherently suspicious, in need of monitoring, tracking. They can't be trusted. We need to know what they're doing, where they're doing it at all times.
Simply because they exercise their Second Amendment right.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what's going on here.
What about military personnel?
Yeah, as far as we can tell, that military's on that as well. And, we're trying to push this word out to military and let them know that, if they're gun owners in Hawaii, they, gun in possession of firearms in Hawaii, they will indefinitely be monitored and on this database. And these are people whom we trust with our lives. I can't imagine why they need to be registered forever. It just doesn't make sense.
What do you think is their ultimate objective here, Amy?
This is just we're just seeing this across the country, and the NRA does believe they're chipping away at the Second Amendment bit by bit by bit, and we're in an election year right now. We've got a candidate, Hillary Clinton, who has said verbatim that she thinks the Supreme Court got it wrong on Heller, which is the landmark Second Amendment case. She said she thinks there's just too many firearms. She has said that that we should look to the Australia-style gun confiscation, which was, for any listener here who's not sure, which was basically an entire confiscation of all the firearms in Australia. It's just the political atmosphere right now, and there's, it's just never been more important for people to be aware of what it's like little by little, these little laws come in, and then if you don't fight it from there, that's when you find yourself really in deep. Clinton and other gun control groups is that it was a gun buyback program. And the term buyback itself implies there was something voluntary in nature about that program. That's, in fact, could not be further from the truth. It was in the late 90s. It was during the, we were having an assault weapons ban going on here, and Australia enacted what they called was a voluntary buyback program. And I think they try to get away with that term by saying that they did offer some compensation, but it's not like the government ever sold those firearms to begin with, so they weren't buying anything back. But they did offer a certain amount of money for everyone to turn in their firearms, and I believe it was unless they could come up with a very, very good reason, like they were in immediate threat or they had to have a firearm for, I have to look at the details, but that's how I recall. They'd have to have a firearm for, their way of life. But basically, everyone had to turn in their firearms and get, a minimal amount of money back for them. And what began as, hey, everyone, bring in your guns, quickly became, if you go to the NRA website, you can see the ads and everything that had happened in Australia. It was under penalty of imprisonment. I mean, if you did not turn over your guns, you were going to prison. So that was the choice they gave you, which is really no choice at all. And now Australia is essentially, they've lost their right to firearm ownership. And that's literally what Hillary Clinton said she thought was something that we should take a look at in this country.
So in Australia, it was incrementalism, right? It went same thing. It went from, there's too many guns, there's too many people getting it. So it went from a volunteer thing, hey, come and give up your gun and we'll pay you for it. And that turned into mass confiscation, penalty of not turning in your firearm, jail.
Yes, I'd say that's an accurate description.
And so part of how they were able to track everybody that had a gun is the first step to that was a Australian registry, right? That's how they track.
Yeah, you have to know where the guns are in order to get them. So, and I'm not as familiar with the details of how exactly that went down in Australia. I just know what the end result there. I've seen what happened there. If you look at the ads, the government was taking out full-page newspaper ads and TV ads that were really scary. They were really scary, and they were saying you cannot afford you will be in big trouble. If you do not turn over your firearms, is losing your liberty, worth that. There was a pic. It was very much looked like just a fear and scare tactic and campaign on part of that government.
Right. So basically the Australian federal government incrementally went from guns are a bad thing, turn them in, to you have to turn them in or you're going to jail. And part of that was getting people, they had to have everybody register. So then they had a database. So then they knew everybody that had one. And those that hadn't turned it in, they went after them. I mean, that's the order of events.
In every single country in history that's gone through with confiscation has first had to have a registry.
Right.
I mean, that's a necessary tool in order to pursue that. And that's, one of the main reasons why the NRA works so hard to make sure that doesn't happen. And
it's starting in Hawaii. And I've got a minute. And let me just ask you this, Amy. This is why when I got your email, I called you immediately yesterday. This is off every mainstream media's radar screen. It's not on CNN. It's not on Fox. It's not anywhere.
I think it's complicated. I think it's a little bit of a challenging issue to look at. I don't know why. I don't know why people haven't picked it up. I mean, that's me being optimistic that may be part of the issue there. But you're right. I mean, it's we're really trying to get the word out here, and we were very glad to get your call because it's really not getting reported.
It's unbelievable. So just as a recap, in case anybody missed it, Hawaii, the state of Hawaii, is set to become the first state in America to put its gun owners onto a federal database. And that's where they're going to start. It's the first step to gun confiscation. I'm not doing a scare tactic. This isn't a conspiratorial theory. This isn't the Alex Jones show. What is happening is real. They're going to pass a law. They've already passed it. The governor's going to sign it. And if you own a gun in Hawaii, you're going to go into a federal database. And that is the first of a 50-state down payment of people that want to chip away at the Second Amendment. Amy, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
More information, where do you go?
Everyone needs to visit www.nraila.org. That's the National Rifle Association Institute for Legislative Action. And that is where every law in every state, everything that's being pushed, passed, debated, they can get all their information there as well as alerts. And that's the most important thing.
Amy, thank you. We're out of time. I'll be right back.